Coming up on the CHGO Cubs podcast, it's a 2 for Tuesday. We're looking back at two of the biggest moves that turned the Cubs into World Series champs. Are they on their way to recreating that magic? Plus, more of your mailbag questions. Hold the mail. Bring me the butter. CHGO Cubs next. Hey, Chicago, what do you say? It is Tuesday, January 7th. We're ready to talk some Cubs baseball with you. Luke Stuckmeyer, Cody Delmendo, Sarah running the ones and twos today, spinning the dials. It is Jon Lester's birthday. Happy birthday, Jon Lester.
Is he the only, I would say he is for sure the one outside of our best friend, Ben Zobrist, who probably
friend
isn't,
of the show.
But we'll always biasly say, yes, he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. But I think you can legitimately make an argument for Jon Lester to be a Hall of Famer. Is he the only one from 16 that I think you can try and make a legit argument for it?
I mean, Chris Bryant was on his way.
Right.
But that's not happening. Yeah, I would say Lester's the guy.
Yeah.
And it is kind of interesting that when you finish the whole thing, that even if he doesn't get in, it's going to be the biggest championship, right, in our lives, in maybe in the history of Chicago sports.
Until the Bears win again.
Until the Bears win again. and they may not have a Hall of Fame player.
Yeah.
Unless Strizny makes a big comeback this year.
I think what sucks is that, like, the guys that you thought were going to go, like, we're going to have that type of career.
Oh, you assume one of the young guys
they just really faded out, whether it was because of injuries or whatever. I think that's what's the saddest thing about the entire era. And, we've talked about that for years and years. And for more years to come, we will talk about that. And that's just because the Cubs don't know how to put a team out there that's going to win now, so we stop talking about it. I say that, and I'm optimistic about next year. So,
well, we're going to weave Lester into the conversation today. Joshua in the live YouTube chat is saying, after yesterday's food/grilled cheese discussion, Luke, as we enter the cold comfort food season, what are your thoughts on chili and cinnamon roll combo, having spent time in Nebraska? It's very interesting, but wait for what I like to call now the seventh inning stretch coming later in the show.
Okay. Mark that one, Sarah.
Joshua has a key question. We're also going to hit some of the mailbag questions. We'll count that as a mailbag question.
Stick around, Joshua.
It's an important question. I know. People outside, I keep explaining that to my wife. People outside of Nebraska don't understand it. I'll address it.
I think more people care about your food takes than Cubs takes, Luke.
I was going to say just any takes.
You think so?
Frankly, they should. I know more about food than I do baseball. Let's be honest.
I agree.
Right?
Like, no offense.
Right.
But yeah, I think you know more about food than
I know
baseball.
more about food than I do anything. It's all I think about.
We both might, actually.
Who doesn't? You eat food all day.
That's true.
Everybody knows more about food than they do about baseball.
Yeah.
Anyways, so we're going to hit some of that. So the question was, this is how we kind of sparked the headline for today's thing. 13 years ago today, 2012, is the day they traded Andrew Cashner to the Padres.
Today is?
For Anthony Rizzo.
Wow. So today's Jon Lester's birthday and the...
Oh, not today. I believe it was yesterday. It's this week.
Okay.
It's this week. I think it was the 6th of January.
Okay.
So that was yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was definitely this week. I remember because I was on a hike in Hawaii. Credit to me. And I got a phone call and said, hey, something big's about to happen. I said, aloha.
Aloha. Hell yeah, brother.
But then it happened, and I dug into it after that.
I don't remember where I was, to be honest with you.
I mean, it's hard to forget when you're hiking up a mountain in Hawaii and you're like, okay, they traded Cashner. Isn't he the only good guy on the team?
January 2012. I was for sure, I hadn't transferred to Eastern yet. I wasn't necessarily in school. I was honestly just probably at my parents' house trying to figure out my life. That's probably what I was doing on that day.
Well, it was 13 years ago this week. We also have Jon Lester's birthday. So I started thinking to myself, other than adding Theo and Joe Madden, player personnel-wise, Arrieta trade is another one. For me, two of the biggest moves were the first big trade, Rizzo, and the first big free agent signing, Lester. Those two were both A-plus moves for Jed and Theo in propelling the team out of 108 years into contenders and finally into World Series champs. Yep. Is there any sense of deja vu out there? Is there any hope that the Cubs have either made their next Rizzo/Lester move, or can you see on the horizon a possible recreation of a Rizzo/Lester move that would do the same thing for this organization? It doesn't have to be apples to apples either, right? Like for me, if I'm picking one off the top of my head, I would say, well, if you can re-sign Kyle Tucker, then you could look at that trade and say, veteran guy, pelts on the wall, he could be their Lester, even though Lester was a signing and a pitcher. It still kind of translates to me. Is there anything else, or do you see that connection at all? Well, if they could keep him. If they don't keep him, it's certainly not even comparable.
I know a lot of fans are down on Dansby Swanson this offseason because whatever their opinions about him and his inconsistencies, his streakiness as an offensive hitter. Yeah. The defense has always been there, right? But I thought when they signed Swanson at the time that maybe you could make that argument that he is that guy that was going to be one of your leaders for the next 7 years. And unfortunately, the team itself hasn't put itself in position for us to even really compare because they haven't made the playoffs yet. I do think Dansby Swanson on the Cubs is good for the team, and I do think that he is a good player. He's just, is he at the level of an Anthony Rizzo? Probably not in terms of, he plays shortstop. Rizzo was first base. Rizzo had that captain, the captain type mantra. Everyone loved Rizzo.
Yeah.
I think Swanson, like you've said before, he's a very polarizing player among the fan base right now. I think fans either really support him or really don't like him, and they value certain things about baseball and what brings value to a team. We both sit here and say Swanson is the best defensive shortstop in baseball, but his offense is so inconsistent that it makes fans, it gets fans arguing back and forth about, is he good, is he bad? At the end of the day, I think he's still somewhere in that top 10 of shortstops in all of baseball, in my opinion. But that's because I value his defense probably more than a lot of fans do, right?
Right.
Rizzo, we watched – it's different because we watched Rizzo grow from, a prospect, and you watch him go through all the ups and downs, and, he struggled that second year, his full first year with the Cubs in 2013, and then he really started taking off in 2014 and beyond, right? It's different since – they traded for him. Swanson is a free agent signing. Can you compare Swanson and Lester? I mean, one's a pitcher, one's an everyday player. I don't know. When you talk about what the impact that those two guys made for the Cubs, Swanson is the closest thing that you can maybe, perhaps one day, be able to say that it's in that same conversation. Because if this team is going to make the playoffs, he has to be more like second half Dansby Swanson last year in 2023 Dansby Swanson for them to legitimately be serious contenders. That they need him to be that. He can't be anything like what he was the first 3 months of last season. So I think he brings a lot of value. Is he a superstar player? No, but was Anthony Rizzo a superstar player? Was Jon Lester in the prime of his career with the Cubs? I think you can make the argument that Lester was better with the Red Sox. He was great with the Cubs, and he had great playoff moments. He was a great playoff pitcher, but I think most people would say the prime of Jon Lester's career was with the Red Sox.
You could argue that Hendricks was a better pitcher that year in 2016.
Yeah.
Right?
Lester just gave you 30 starts. He pitched a lot of innings. He had the playoff success. He pitched well in the playoffs. The Game 5 of the World Series was incredible. Like, I'm trying to
A+ move.
They were great moves. Obviously, they don't win the World Series without him. I think that perhaps one day we can say Swanson was a key piece to them. Hopefully, being hopefully having some success in October. That's my hope.
It'd be nice.
I think at the end of the day, that's my hope.
It would be nice if you could say, if and when the Cubs get to a World Series and they win it again, it'd be nice if you could say to yourself, Dansby Swanson was one of the 10 moves that were crucial to the Cubs getting there.
And
right?
That's what I'm getting
because it's not apples to apples. We know Dansby Swanson's not Jon Lester. We know, if you want to do position by position, the closest thing you could hope for right now is that Michael Busch turns into Rizzo. Yeah. Now, I wouldn't go ahead and expect that. I wouldn't put that on Michael Busch, but that's a closer, if you want to just do an actual apple to comparing an apple, okay. Sure. They made a trade. They traded a pitcher for a position player who's young that they thought could. That's comparable. Now, the result may or may not be the same. But if you look at the 2016 Cubs, like I said, you start counting them on your two hands. You've got the Theo move. You've got the Madden move. You've got the Rizzo trade. You've got the Arrieta trade. You've got the Hendricks trade. You've got, right? Mm-hmm. Signing Dexter Fowler. Mm-hmm. Ben Zobrist signing. So, and you could easily name 10 key things that happened that led to the Cubs winning the World Series, right?
Yeah.
Could Dansby Swanson still be one of those 10? Could Kyle Tucker's trade be one of the 10 that moves the Cubs into the future? I'd say yes, but only if he's here beyond 1 year.
Right. I guess because Rizzo was traded to the Cubs, maybe PCA for Javi Baez is more comparable, or even the Michael Busch trade. If Michael Busch takes a step forward, I think we all have a lot of hope and optimism for both those guys, right? I said Swanson thinking more so in terms of like the biggest moves they've done or the biggest moves that Jed has done since he took over.
So which one's
the biggest move he's done outside of trading for Tucker?
Which one's the most likely in your eyes to be one of the key moves to push the Cubs into greatness again someday? Is it PCA? Is it Javi for PCA? Is it trading for Tucker or signing Swanson?
We could certainly be saying PCA or Bush or maybe one of these other prospects, maybe Owen Casey or whoever, because I think at the end of the day, right now, I feel like Jed is putting all his chips in on the young guys. He clearly is. They're not. They weren't serious for Soto. They haven't been serious for Santander. They weren't serious they've been linked to Bregman, but I think a lot of things would have to happen for that to actually be manifested. They haven't gone out and, outside of trading for Tucker, like they are, to me, they are, at least on the position side of the team, it seems like they're going all in on, or he's putting all his chips in on a lot of the young guys. And like, I'm here for it. I just more so want them to not have to put them all out there at once and see what happens, because that, like, lightning isn't going to strike in the bottle like it did in 15 and 16 again. So how they go about it will be interesting to see. But that outside of a few guys, it feels like they are certainly trying to become they're trying to develop this team into a real contender internally. They made the big trade for Tucker, right?
Sure.
They did. I'm talking specifically here in 25. It feels like more so that they're trying to give a lot of their young guys an opportunity. And I'm fine with giving Shaw that opportunity. I'm fine with PCA, Bush, that opportunity. They certainly could do other things in terms of going that route, but you might be blocking a guy too. So I don't know.
I've got one more. To think about. I've got one more comparison for this coming up in just a second, trying to get to that first team to 2016 and now trying to get back there again in just a minute. But first, a word from our sponsors. Do you remember Joe Madden's old mantra, try not to suck? Mm-hmm. My New Year's resolution is try not to stink. Our teams stink, but the rest of us don't have to. I'm arming my pits and more with Mando whole body deodorant. What's whole body deodorant? It's safe to use anywhere on your body. 12 hours after a shower, the average man's grundle odor is 5 out of 12. What's a grundle? I don't know, but you can't show it on television or on a podcast. With Mando, the average grundle odor is 0 out of 10. Mando starter pack right now is the perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like mini body wash or deodorant wipes, and free shipping. As a special offer for our listeners here at CHGO, new customers at Mando get $5 off that starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. So use the code CHGO at shopmando.com. Shopmando.com. Please support our show. Tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando, and try not to stink.
Get ready for the season ahead with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank, Luke. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. They have hundreds of options to choose from, so you're bound to find the perfect pair to match your style. They probably have a style in your favorite team's color. I said yesterday I got the blue ones. Probably get some orange if you're an Atlanta fan
nice.
like me.
But the blue would go. There's still blue and orange.
Yeah, that's true. Exactly. Right. Plus, if your shades ever go missing or take an unexpected hit, don't sweat it.
Here we go.
They have the most insane protection of all of eyewear. Every pair is backed by lost or broken replacements. If you don't love your shades, exchange for a new pair or return worry-free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop. Their team always has your back with personal and fast support. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code CHGO for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people.
Very nice. We were talking about the Lester signing, the Rizzo trade. It's Lester's birthday. It's the anniversary week of the Rizzo trade. You know, are they anywhere near there? As we were discussing this, I was thinking about, so I started naming those quick 10 things that made the Cubs champs from total bums to 2016 champs, right? And there was front office stuff. There was a new manager. There was obviously a lot of signings, some key trades. What I didn't mention was draft. Obviously, Chris Bryant's drafting was crucial. Drafting Kyle Schwarber, also crucial. It was a big hit, right? It's interesting that this time around, it seems as though the Cubs are counting on the draft more than they are the big moves.
I think it's a league thing. I don't think it's just the Cubs. I think it's a league
So
thing.
let's say it's the Cubs, but they've also told us that this group of prospects is not as good as the prospects, which really, am I missing somebody? There's really only 2 key players that were drafted. Who am I forgetting? Anybody? No, because Zobrist was signed. Fowler was signed. Lester was signed.
Almora played a big part in
I
Game
guess
7.
he did. You couldn't have won it without him, but it never really.
It did not work out, but I don't think they win Game 7 without him.
Chris Bryant's the big one that stands out. Schwarber's the next one.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right? Yep. So, I mean.
Ian Happ was taken in 15 or 16, but he didn't debut until after the World Series. Yep.
And then you have some international signings.
Yep. Jorge Soler.
So it's like that group was better, and still only 2 of them really impacted the winning of the World Series. I think, unless I'm missing somebody. It's interesting that they seem to be going that way. My point is you're going to have to make. My point is just that you're going to have to make more bold moves. I know that the game has changed. Yeah. The whole process has changed. You're not going to recreate the 2016 World Series champions in exactly the same way. It's not going to be deja vu. It already isn't. But I do think that they're still going to need more big moves like Tucker, more under the radar but big signings like Dexter Fowler. Yeah. Now, I could easily see Swanson looking like Zobrist. I guess I could see Michael Busch being Rizzo. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's only 1 year. It's only 1 year.
It is.
Don't know. But, Matthew Boyd, we can use him as an example. Like, that's a signing that a lot of people have already forgotten about. Like, it's a nice replacement for Kyle Hendricks, potentially, and depth.
Sure.
Right? Admittedly, when they traded for Miguel Montero, I was like, okay, this is an upgraded catcher, but I didn't know if that guy was going to be part of some serious team.
Right.
And then he got the game-winning hit in Game 7. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes we say this a lot, like, the moves that we don't talk about sometimes all kind of come back and you look back in hindsight and you're like, wow, that ended up being a great move. So I think a question that we could maybe ask and perhaps answer is ask ourselves over the next calendar year or so, which moves has Jed made that are quote unquote under the radar that are going to put the Cubs in contention. One off the top of my head is David Robertson for Ben Brown, right? I was on the PHLY Phillies podcast like 3 weeks ago, and one of their guys was telling me, is like, I can't believe we gave you Ben Brown, and like they want him back.
Yeah.
Right. Now, obviously, it's all based off potential right now. We've seen some success with him, but that's one that I feel like perhaps if this team is in contention, making a playoff run one day, 25, 26, whenever, he's under control for a while. Like, he's a guy that I could certainly see being part of like a real contender here in Chicago. But as we sit here right now, this team's an unfinished product. And I don't know if this team is, 86.5 right now is what the win total is at Vegas. Like, I don't know if they can win 87 games right now. I think they're better.
I also don't know if 87 is good enough.
Oh, yeah, that's a fair point too. My point is that at this point, the only guys that I can look on this team and be like, yeah, they could perhaps be part of like that next great Cubs team is a lot of the young guys. Mm-hmm. And Swanson's going to be here for 5 more years anyway, so I hope that he sees some playoff baseball here in Chicago, because if not, then, man, do we have a lot more sadness ahead. You know what I mean? Maybe Nico Horner, I'm cheering for Ian Happ to play some playoff baseball with the Cubs. I mean, he did it in 2017 and 2018, right? Like, but it's very, like, especially 18 was just one game.
Right.
You know, like, Ian Happ has been here for so long, and he hasn't played a lot of playoff baseball the last 6 years. I mean, count 2020 for him, I guess, but whatever. Like, they have some guys that I feel like, yeah, you could say it, but a lot of them too, where I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if that guy's going to help them make any kind of run.
I don't know if they're an 86-win team. I don't know if they're an 87-win team. I don't know if either of those numbers is good enough to get you to the postseason. Mm-hmm. I know 83 is not very often.
No.
So
you got to continue to build and get to 90-plus win projection. That's what they got to continue to do here.
They have to, but it goes back. So that leads us to our next thing, the division. Mm-hmm. The Dodgers traded Gavin Lux to the Reds. Are the Reds starting to creep up? Like, you have to remember that while you're trying to go up, the rest of the division is in flux too.
Yeah.
I don't know that the Brewers, I say it every year, I don't know that the Brewers are still 10 games better than the Cubs, but I didn't think they were last year either.
Well,
but I do know that the Reds are getting to be an interesting team.
Yeah.
And they weren't that far behind the Cubs last year.
I think you can make the argument that the Reds have the best rotation in the division. I'm not saying they are, but I think you can make the argument. Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo. I know Brady Singer he's always been a lot of potential for him, but he hasn't necessarily turned out to be something great. As far as like top end rotation guys, mm-hmm. I think the Reds might be able to make that argument.
Pirates have a couple of good arms too.
Obviously the Pirates do too. But I do think that the position players for the Reds have a higher ceiling than than the Brewers and even Pittsburgh. It's just the fact of like, will they pan out? Like, I think it's Ellie De La Cruz and then like maybe TJ Friedel and Spencer what's his last name?
Spencer Rattler's what I want to keep saying. That's all I'm still in football.
I'm blanking on his name, but like,
help us.
They're gonna get Matt McClain back this season,
right?
Who
and so Lux is probably, as Gary's saying, he's probably a utility guy.
Yeah, right.
But a great one.
Exactly, I agree. But if they're gonna have McClain and Elly De La Cruz up the middle, and you have Lux as a utility player to go with some of their young guys that they have that have the high prospect ranking status, like, will they all hit? No, but they do have a high upside, and so they scare me a little bit. They're the Reds. In the back of my head, I'm like, it's the Reds. But I don't know. Terry Francona doesn't take that job if he doesn't think that there's something brewing over there, in my opinion. So I think they added a great manager. I think you can certainly make the argument that Francona is a better manager than Counsell based off just general success over the course of his career. Maybe it's not even an argument. Maybe it's just the truth.
Right.
But I think that the talent in Cincinnati is interesting, and they have a superstar caliber player in Elly De La Cruz.
Steer.
Thank you, Spencer Steer.
Thank you, MC.
Who I think had a little bit of a down year last year, but his rookie year was great. Will he be better in 25? That's what we'll probably be asking about a lot of Reds players. But they certainly have a ceiling, a high ceiling. I don't know what the floor is though. Is their floor like basically like last year again? It's a interesting outlook with them.
They win like 77 games last year, 78, something like that.
Yeah.
We're hoping to. We'll see. I've asked Mr. Gordon to come on tomorrow. We'll see if we get Mr. Gordon Wittenmeyer, who now covers the Reds. We'll talk a little Cincinnati and division.
Candelario, who's a nice little.
They've got
veteran.
Some players. They've got some players.
Obviously, I think he's mid, but like he's a veteran piece for a young team that needs a veteran. So I don't. I'm not sitting here saying that they're going to run away with the division or anything like that, but I don't think we as fans should sit here and sleep on them. I think that's the point I'm trying to make.
Right.
Now, if the Cubs add, like we talked about, Jack Flaherty and another guy to play third base with Matt Shaw to like split time / platoon, whatever, and they add a couple relievers, then I'll probably feel a lot better about the Cubs. But as we sit here right now on January 7th, I'm kind of like, these two teams aren't that far apart.
Hey, Arenado's available. Saw John Morosi saying that they'd like to resolve that issue with Nolan Arenado sooner rather than later. I mean, you're getting close to being a month away from
spring training,
pitchers and catchers. He's got the no trade clause. He didn't want to go to Houston. Would he want to go to the Red Sox? Would he want, who knows where he wants to go, but that'll be an interesting thing. Morosi also mentioned Orioles and Mariners now talking about a guy we've talked about for the Cubs, Luis Castillo. If nothing else, if the Cubs were still in on that, is the price going up?
Well, let's acknowledge the fact that the Orioles have been very quiet this offseason. Like, for a team that should be like, that's very clear in their winning window.
Yeah, could lose Burns, Santander.
Right? They have, Gunnar Henderson had an incredible season last year, right? And they still have Adley Rutschman. They have a lot of really good young players who they've drafted, developed, and have promoted. And they still have one of the best farm systems in all baseball. I believe the best farm system in all baseball. So they have guys they can move for a guy like Luis Castillo, and probably has a higher ceiling than most of the guys the Cubs have. My question about the Orioles is like, why didn't they bring Burns back? Why weren't they in on Max Fried? Like, why? I don't get it. I really don't.
Right. Well, they might be in on Flaherty.
Yeah, but I don't. Why?
He's not Burns.
Well,
period.
Flaherty once played with them. Like, I don't know why they would go back to that, personally. Now, they might be desperate. I don't know. My point I'm getting here about the Orioles is that they're at a point where they need to do something, or else they're going to go into next season with basically probably the same outlook. They'll have a pretty good offense, but like, will they get the pitching? Like they have a few guys in the rotation that I like, but losing Corbin Burns is a big deal. Yeah. They need to replace Corbin Burns. So, yeah, Am I fearful that this trade's going to go down and the Cubs are going to miss out on Luis Castillo? I mean, perhaps. I'm just curious about like the names being thrown out there. The Cubs and the Mariners haven't been linked for a while.
It's been quiet.
It's been quiet, and I don't know if it's because of the Roki market, people waiting on it, and the Mariners are in on Roki too. Like, is this something that could come back once that's over? We talked about that yesterday, but the Orioles have done less than the Cubs this offseason, and they're supposed to be in their World Series window right now.
They are in one.
Right. So I wouldn't be surprised if a trade happens. And on the flip side, the Mariners need bats. They need bats in a big way. So the Orioles have that. They could certainly move a couple guys that probably are blocked and get Castillo.
Mailbag and seventh inning stretch coming up in just a second. But first, a word from our sponsors. With Empire Today, you get to shop at home convenience, the right product for your needs, quick and professional installation, and a low price guarantee. Empire Today is the best place to get new flooring. So, of course, there are copycats, but Empire can't be beaten on things like quality, service, and speed. So competitors then try to advertise low-quality products. The Empire's not even going to get carried. They're not going to promise you the lowest prices, because anybody that's promising lowest price, period, they're putting flooring in your home that they wouldn't put in their home. Empire's philosophy is to help you find what you need, not overwhelm you with 1,000 choices and substitutes. They also have a virtual floor designer that allows you to just snap a picture, see how the new floors will look in your room. And shopping for flooring at the big box store, that's a real roll of the dice. You could be talking to somebody that was working in plumbing yesterday. Flooring is all Empire Today does. They live and breathe flooring. They also service their own warranties. So schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners can receive an incredible $350 discount. I didn't stumble. $350 off. All you have to do is use the code CHGO. Restrictions apply. See EmpireToday.com/CHGO for details.
Whether it's pro or college, the app to bet football is Circa Sports Illinois. Circa Sports, it's sports betting the way it should be. Circa Sports Illinois has high betting limits, low holds, and exceptional customer service. Bet all your favorite teams in every game this season. Spreads, props, futures, or in-game. Circa Sports has it. Fund and bet like a pro from anywhere, anytime in Illinois. Download your new bookie today at circasports.com. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. I, as you learned yesterday, cashed my future bet on DJ Moore season-long receiving yards at 950.5. But the story behind why I placed that bet, well, not why, but how. It started with we'll just call it a unit for all my degenerates out there. Started with a unit on Shota Imanaga to strike out over 150.5 batters in the 2024 season.
Okay.
I took those winnings because he cashed that early September. I felt really smart after it happened.
Took that unit.
Took those winnings and put that all on DJ Moore to cash 950.5 receiving yards, which he did on his last catch of the season.
Right.
What a sweat. All right. And now the question is, what do I put those winnings on for the upcoming baseball season? Which Cubs player should I bet on?
Dansby Swanson.
I'm not betting on Dansby Swanson. That's going to be too much of a headache.
Maybe you wait and just see how the roster folds out. Because what if Tucker home runs?
I did say that once the Vegas odds came out and they put the Cubs at 86.5 win total, I did say that it's a good idea to bet the over now because they're going to keep adding and that win total could perhaps rise.
You can't do it on a pitcher. You could go ahead
even though I did last year.
But I mean, you could do Steele, Cy Young. You could wait Rookies, Rookie of the Year. There's just too many injuries with pitchers. Not that position. I just wouldn't. That's just my opinion. By the way, when do I didn't even look at my app yet. Have I collected on my Bears under that I took yet?
You probably did because
or do I have to wait for the Super Bowl?
No, it should have already cashed.
Should have cashed, right?
Yeah.
I thought I was sitting a little. Did you notice that I was sitting a little crooked? Right, because the cash is stacking up under my cheek.
Yeah, the DJ Moore future bet it cashed yesterday.
Bears under, that was a lock. Everybody running to the 10. No, it's 11. They're gonna win 12.
Maybe
sometimes they just bear.
I kind of want to do something related to PCA. That's what I want to do. Like maybe
Stolen
bases for PCA or something like that.
War? Do they have a war?
No,
they don't do that one
They
yet.
do like stolen bases, home runs, hits, stuff like that.
Stolen bases would be fun.
Yeah. That would, like, he had 30 last year, close to 30, and he didn't hit for 2 months. I wonder.
He'll steal 40 bags next year.
I don't believe.
I don't know what the number is, but he'll steal 40 bags next year.
I don't believe the Vegas has put out like the player prop season long futures yet. But when they do, we're gonna ride something all season.
Christian A says Hap walks.
Hap walks.
Tucker to hit 30 homers is a fun one because we've been begging for the 30 homer guy, and I think he's a 30 homer guy.
It would be a fun one, yeah.
But
so anyway, let me know if you're DJing out there, because we're just gonna keep riding. Like I turned this 1 unit into now 3 units, and now let's turn 3 units into like 5.
All right, we're gonna hit the mailbag, but and there's some good. Brendan Miller with a question we want to address from that mailbag. Vanilla Chill had a good one, but since it's 12:07 right around, let's take the 7th inning stretch. Also from the mailbag, let's go back to the question about just a couple minutes. Cinnamon rolls and chili. It's what they do in Nebraska. And I'm going to tell you, I don't even like chili, but the combo of cinnamon rolls and chili is pure genius. I didn't like it until I tried it, and then I tried it, and I was like, the cinnamon and the sweet go great with the warm cinnamon.
I hate chili, but I love cinnamon rolls.
Well, let me say, chili, no beans.
Okay, I hate beans. That's what ruins it.
Chili, hold the beans,
guy.
A hot cinnamon roll on the side, and I'm going to tell you, it's a dynamite combo.
Okay,
Nebraska's got that right.
It's not like first thought, I'm like, that doesn't sound like something that goes well.
There you go, Joshua.
But like I said yesterday, I'm willing to try anything. So should I go and order some chili and one of those big old cinnamon rolls at Ann Sather's?
Yes.
Yes.
And by the way, the Discord, I jumped in there today for Diehards. It was nothing but grilled cheese talk.
I realized that too.
It took over the whole Discord. It was nothing. I just was scrolling through. We asked for mailbag questions. It was nothing but people talking about their grilled cheese preferences, including Austin, who then said he prefers to drizzle buffalo sauce and ranch on a frozen pepperoni pizza. I can't go there.
I can't go
there.
I don't drizzle it on the pizza, but I'll dip pizza in ranch. I will. It's not like it's not something I do all the time, but I've done it.
That's fine. I'm not a cold pizza person.
Hot honey on pizza is good.
That's great.
Hot honey on pepperoni pizza.
Yes. Hot honey on pizza, yes.
What about Mike Taylor PB&J with chili rules?
Okay.
PB&J with what?
I feel like that's with PB&J
with chili.
I feel like that's too much going on, and peanut butter's too strong.
I just feel myself going like this all the time.
It's too strong.
No.
Yeah,
cinnamon roll outweighs the PB&J. You're right. Go to Ann Sather. See if they. I don't know if they have good chili.
Ann Sather has some of the best.
Maybe you make a good chili at home. Hold the beans. Go get the Ann Sather. Heat it up, or Cinnabon.
I've had people tell me that chili isn't chili if it doesn't have beans in it, and
they're not right.
It offends me.
Well, I'm going to tell you, it's the only chili that I will eat.
Same. I'm not a big chili guy because, like, when people tell me that, I'm like, well, I guess I don't like chili then. So.
Ben thinks that I now have to bring grilled cheese takes to the show daily. He's making a habit of mentioning new ones. Well, is there anything more American than a good grilled cheese sandwich?
Well,
PB&J.
Let's settle the debate. Is it grilled cheese or cheese toasty?
Grilled cheese.
It's grilled cheese.
Also, sourdough
people call
bread.
It cheese toasted?
Sourdough
cheese
bread with
toasty.
Gruyere cheese.
I don't call it
Gruyere cheese is good.
But I've heard people call it that.
I asked last week, is Gruyere the same as Gouda? Because I went in the store looking for Gruyere, and it said Gruyere Gouda on it. I was like, huh?
Gouda
Apparently they're
saltier.
cousins.
Yeah, they're cousins. It's the sodium difference.
The Swiss.
Yeah.
Gary says ranch is the worst condiment ever made.
Christian says ranch and pizza is fantastic. Gary's also
Gary,
mad.
We live in the Midwest, man. How can you say that?
I'm not a ranch guy. I'm not a ranch guy. I'm not a mayo guy. But Gary was also mad that he says I didn't address his question. I have addressed his question.
Yeah, we answered your question the last time you.
That's right. He keeps asking about the coaching staff and how they're going to teach things and will make an impact. And I said, I have no idea because I have no idea who's a good coach and who's not. Managers, you can at least you can start to rank managers. When you start asking me, tell me who's got the best first base coach in baseball. I have no idea. Name 6 first base coaches in baseball. Couldn't do it.
We all legitimately.
So really? I don't want to lie. You know me, Gary. I'm the Captain Truth here.
FAX.
Facts.
We all legitimately liked Mike Napoli because of vibes. I think that was it. That's the only reason that we liked Mike Napoli.
I liked he had good sunglasses.
Yeah. I felt like that's honestly that's a question that is hard to really answer unless you're inside the ballpark, which me and Luke, well, you can. You gonna go to the ballpark this year?
I was there last year.
What, once on Rizzo Day?
No, he was there twice.
You mean the actual ballpark?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Are you gonna?
We'll talk about it. We'll see.
You go to the ballpark and you can ask Jed what makes what rank.
Jed, I know you're worried about your pitching staff, but when you get your grilled cheese ready, do you go mayo on the bread or butter on the bread, or do you do something crazy like a ranch?
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Now that's the content I'm here for, actually. Instead of asking baseball questions.
Is that a serious question?
Yes.
Jed, mayo or butter on your grilled cheese?
Yes.
And please give us a straight answer.
Straight answer.
Carter Hawkins jumps in. Butter.
Olive oil.
They start fighting over it. It's the most aggressive answer you've had. Godfather says ketchup on your eggs over easy. Now see, Godfather, that's a different seventh inning stretch.
I'm a hot sauce on eggs, like sriracha specifically.
Cholula is my favorite
Cholula's
hot
great.
sauce. But yeah. Anyway, that was a long seventh inning stretch.
At my age, I can't take the hot sauce. All right, mailbag question. Brendan Miller, friend of the show, part of the show.
On Fridays.
The pitch doctor says, in year 5 of Jed's tenure, is a 90-win projection too low of a standard for fans? And then specifically, was it unrealistic to expect a bigger turnaround when he took over from Theo?
Asking the important questions.
Second part first. Was it unrealistic to expect a bigger turnaround when he took over from Theo? No, I don't believe it was. He's part of the reason the problem was there. It was his job to fix it.
Sure.
He and Theo, while they will go down in Cubs history as two of the people greatly responsible for getting the Cubs the championship in 2016, were also responsible for part of the downfall. Not drafting well, not developing guys, all those things that happened that we've
holding on to guys for too long.
Holding on to guys for too long.
Which Jed
so
is
was it
openly
unrealistic to expect a bigger turnaround? No, I hoped he could recreate what he did early in his tenure with Theo. Is 90 wins too low of a standard for fans? It might be. 90 wins is pretty good if you do it on a, let's say you do it 4 out of 5 years. I'd be okay with that. Yeah. But right now, I just want to, can we get back to 90? Can we start by getting back to 90?
Can we start by getting to 90?
I would love 100. I would love
I think
a bar of 100 or 95, but
I think let's
be realistic.
I think this question shouldn't be asked to me or Luke. This question should be asked to Jed and Tom. You know what I mean? Because
90 too low.
Because they are trying to project a team. They're trying to build a team projected to get to 90 wins. Just 90. While the Dodgers and other teams like the Phillies and the Braves are putting teams together to project themselves to win 95 to 100. You know what I mean? We sit here and talk about projections a lot. That's just the fact of the matter. The Cubs are the last 2 years, they've been trying to build a team that projects to win 85 to 90 games. Outside of trading for Kyle Tucker, what have they done this offseason that makes you think that they're trying to project themselves to 95 to 100? Now, they could if some of their prospects hit, right?
Well, that's the bigger problem. That goes back to the soundbite that has the entire fan base on edge, upset, disgusted, that they need their players to exceed projections.
Yes.
So
Exceed
in
projections.
addition to try and get your team on the high end, project to a 90-win team, they also want their players to exceed projections to get to that 90. So it's almost like, in betting terms, it's almost like doubling down on the same wager.
Yeah. In some ways, yeah. I don't disagree there.
Right?
But
so that's
as far as like
that hasn't
fans,
led to much.
As the fan of this, well, we're both fans, but as a fan here, is it too low of a standard for me? Me personally, like, dude, I just want to make the playoffs I just want to be a consistent playoff contender, and anything can happen once you get to October. That's how I view. I mean, is that too low of a standard for me personally? Like, I don't know. In Cubs history, it's not like they make the playoffs on a consistent basis outside of 2015 to 2018. You know, like, I think this question is better served for front office and ownership than it is for fans, personally. But I think we can all sit here and say that they should be trying to build a team that's projected to win 90 to 95.
Yeah.
Even. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the fact of the matter. And I think that's why most of the time our YouTube chat is pretty upset or annoyed, despite the fact that I do like the route, or I do like the path of this offseason so far. I do like what they've done. I do think the team is better than it was at the end of 2024 as we sit here today. But how much is the needle moved?
How much better?
How much has the needle moved since the end of 2024 to today? To me, it's moved just a little bit, but not enough to where I'm like, this team's going to the World Series in 2025. This team's going to the NLCS in 2025. I do not feel like that. I feel like right now we're sitting like, yeah, they're putting themselves in position to be a playoff team. They're not there yet fully, but they're putting themselves in position. But
they're still counting on exceeding projections. That's
yes.
The number one thing they're banking on is players exceeding projections. That's the reality of it. I saw Craig said, no, 4 to 9 games over mediocrity is not okay. Yeah. And I like what Born to Run 99 had to say. Braves, Phillies, Mets, Dodgers, Padres, Diamondbacks, way ahead of the Cubs. For me, if I were in charge of the Cubs, I wouldn't be worried about the number of wins. That's fine. And I wouldn't be thinking, well, if we exceed projections, maybe we could get to 90 wins. That's where we want to be each year. Why not approach the offseason each year going into it? How many teams are we better than? All teams. The goal is not to get to the World Series. The goal is to win the World Series. So those are just the teams in the National League that you can easily count on one hand and say, those teams are better than the Cubs. Mm-hmm. So even if you win 88 games next year, 89 games, 90 because you've exceeded projections, are you still better than those teams? Or are you just counting on the dumb luck of baseball for the random year that you get into the postseason that somehow you're also going to get the luck of projections and say, and we're going to beat the 8 teams ahead of us to win the World Series? I don't know.
I do think matchups matter. And I do think that for the sake of this conversation, if the Cubs win 90 to 92 games in 2025, I would like to know, because I don't know the reasoning of it right now, I would like to think that if that happens, that I'll feel some sort of confidence about whoever they would play in a postseason series. Like, the way that you're saying it, it's maybe. Like, okay, I hear you, because yes, it feels like the front office is always saying exceed projections. But at the same time, to me, baseball right now, it's the Dodgers, the Braves, if healthy, if fully healthy, and the Phillies in the National League, and then everyone else. Even though the Mets added Juan Soto.
They could climb into that conversation.
They could. The Mets could climb into that. Even though they added Juan Soto, I still don't know about the pitching for them. So I am concerned about that. And the Padres, they've done nothing this offseason. Are they going to basically
run
Mets
it back? And Padres,
like, I don't know.
They're in the same conversation.
Yes, right? So I just named what? I name 5 teams. Could the Cubs be that 6th team? Perhaps.
We're not talking about the Brewers who finished 10 games ahead of them.
Right. But also losing guys too.
Sure.
But like the NL Central in general, it's like you could say the same thing about every single team. That is why the Cubs have to continue to add to this team that I think is on the right path to put themselves at least over those teams.
Shouldn't the goal be, though, like, again, when I'm talking about teams you're better, shouldn't you at least be one of the 3 best teams in the National League each year?
Shouldn't the goal be? Yeah.
Shouldn't the goal be to at least be, in your worst year, be one of the, unless you're tanking, one of the 5 best teams in the National League? Is that too much to ask?
Not at this point in this.
It shouldn't be.
In this era of baseball that is the Jed Hoyer era, it shouldn't be. No, it shouldn't be. And
because you expect the Dodgers. Oh, we're forgetting the Giants too, who could creep into the. They're more in with the Mets and Padres, right?
Yeah. I think the Cubs are in a better spot than the Giants right now. Personally.
I hope they are. But it's another team that you could.
But they're certainly a team that, if they also exceed projections.
And we're hoping that the Cardinals, who finished with the same record in a year when they're absolutely terrible, we're still wasting a time period where the Cardinals are not good.
Right. Well, the Brewers stole their devil magic. So I don't know. I hear what you're saying about the goal and this and that. Like, I think we all agree with that. Like, yeah, when you say top 3, that's just win your division.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Like, that's actually top 4. You should be saying top 4.
Top 4, top 5. You're a division champ.
Yeah. So should they?
They were the best team in baseball in 2016.
They were.
That doesn't happen all the time because baseball. Right. But the one time they won, they were the best team.
Yeah. So I think there's just obviously we could rant about this. I could rant about this more and more about how much this ownership is showing its true colors this offseason. When this should be an offseason where they should be easily going over the luxury tax and whatever to add depth, to do this and that. Absolutely. I could sit here every day and do it, but no one wants to hear that. So I've been trying my best to not do it. I gave my piece about it back in November, right? But so as we sit here in reality, it's like, despite that, they still have a roster where it's on the way. It's on the way to where I think they can do that and actually not have to necessarily everyone exceed projections. Mm-hmm. They are in a position, they're putting themselves in a position to where if 1 or 2 guys have a down year, but so-and-so and so-and-so has a breakout year, to where maybe it evens out a little bit. I don't think they're in a position to where they need this guy to do this and do this and do this. And if they do that, then they'll be in the playoffs. I believe they have a lot of depth in the pitching, and they have a really solid lineup at this point that, yes, they're going to need some guys to exceed projections, but I also feel like it's upgraded from the end of 24. I mean, every team needs their prospects to hit. Every team.
Well, that's what I was going to get to next is, Barb says Theo didn't have the depth in the system to keep winning.
Yeah.
True.
Jason McLeod was not good at his job at the end.
Jason McLeod was the third of the, right? Those were the 3 guys. And the problem wasn't that there wasn't depth in the system. It's that their drafts didn't pay off. Like,
nope. They had some
whether it's further down the draft or up even the guys up at the top. I can remember Matt Caesar being there, does great art and stuff now, but like he never really turned into, other than his bat being used by Rizzo, he was never a key piece. Almora never turned into a key piece.
Yep.
All of the pitchers going back to ALLCITY and Marquez and like all those guys that were supposed to come up and be the next wave. Ian Happ came up and has been a really good Major League Baseball player, but they didn't get the next stars to come up. And they didn't get 5th, 6th. Nieren's the guy that complains about it all the time. The 4th, 5th, 6th round guys. Where are they?
Yeah.
They never made it.
Sure.
Justin Steele is another great success story.
But I do think
it took a while.
I do think in recent years, though, they've been able to move later round draft picks for value.
Yeah.
I know Zaire Hope is considered a top 100 prospect now in baseball, but at the time he was an 11th round pick, and more people were upset about moving Jackson Ferris for Michael Busch. That trade may age terribly, especially if Michael Busch really falls off after his 1 year. But let's act as if Michael Busch gives you 5 to 6 solid, really good years at first base for you, and then you look back at that trade
and you say, "Well, we traded a really good pitcher, but he was a prospect, and the other team had to continue to develop him, and he had to stay healthy." Yada yada yada.
The point that I'm making is that they moved a guy that they took in like the 11th round and got a guy who could play every single day. Mm-hmm. That's not something that they were doing during that era,
right?
You know what I mean? So like, I get what people are saying when it comes to that, but if you're able to move move guys like that for value that you can use immediately, that's not something that they were doing years ago.
No, and if they're not going to spend whatever the market is asking for the next Lester or the next whoever, right? If they're not going to do that, then the only way this team will compete moving forward is it A, the wind is blowing out when they hit and blowing in when they pitch, or B, they draft the right guys and they develop them.
Yes.
That's it. That's all it will come down to.
Yeah.
Because it appears they are not going to be the Dodgers or the Mets or those other teams.
At least until after the new CBA.
Right. If that comes along and changes things.
Potentially. But to bring it back around and hopefully end on some optimism, they still have like $50 million to spend here before they hit that luxury tax tier. They're going to spend it. And if they don't...
And if that's Flaherty for 22?
Right. If they don't spend it, as someone who supported trading Bellinger, all right, I'm going to be pissed off if they don't spend that money on something.
Friday 120 Club. Maybe there'll be fewer tickets. Nah, you'll still go.
Well, yeah. If CHGO is going to buy me and Bragg's tickets to go and do it.
That's right.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying, right? That was the biggest fear for the Bellinger thing was just don't make it a salary dump. Right. Make it a salary rearrangement.
Right.
Like,
and
put it somewhere else.
And I have confidence.
Not in your pocket.
I have confidence that they're going to spend it because the last couple years they've been putting themselves basically at the line. I mean, hell, they went over it last year. Yeah. Barely. Because some nerd in their offices at 1060 West Addison forgot how to math. All right. So I'm just saying that if they don't, I'm going to be very, very pissed off. But we'll see what happens.
Mike Taylor with a good comment here. He says, they don't spend over 25. Bet. There's been some good comments in live. Shout out to the live YouTube chat today. Some good comments today, including the question about cinnamon rolls.
Cinnamon rolls is my
chili.
favorite one. What didn't Mike have he said bold statement Tuesday, Happ and Suzuki will not be on the team when the Cubs make the playoffs.
Oh.
That's a bold statement, brother.
Well, that's also depressing because they're both going to be on the opening day roster.
And they're under contract for another 2 years.
And they both have no trade clauses.
Oh, God.
All right.
2 more years of pain and misery. Let's go. And we're going to waste the 1 year of Kyle Tucker. Anyway.
Thanks to everybody in the live YouTube chat. Thanks to all of our diehards out there. Make sure you subscribe. Best way to enjoy the CHGO experience is sign up, be a diehard. Then you can get in the Discord and send your thoughts to us directly about grilled cheese, Michael Busch, Anthony Rizzo, coaches, whatever. Whatever you want to talk about, it's there for you.
Yes, absolutely.
We're back at 11:30 tomorrow, hopefully with a guest. We'll let you know about that. Till then, if there is breaking news, we will jump in with a breaking news podcast. Don't expect it, but we're always ready for that. Thanks for checking out the CHGO Cubs podcast. Back at 11:30 tomorrow. We hope you will be too. Till then, thanks for watching and fly the W.
We all silly like the mayor.